Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Hotdog and Handshake podcast, episode 5. Can't believe it, 5 episodes in already. We've had some amazing guests on, but today we don't just have a guest, we have a monster. The only monster in existence that I'm aware of from the deepest, darkest jungles, the one and only Kongo Kong. How are we doing today, man?
I can't complain, man. Doing pretty well and not bad for an old guy.
Not bad. Oh, you may be an old guy, man, but you're young at heart, and you really ain't that old.
In the wrestling business, I am. Shit, I'm a dinosaur around these parts.
Yeah, well, you know what? Everybody learns the best knowledge from a dinosaur. So even if you think you are, you have knowledge to impart that you've learned over the years. That's invaluable to everybody, including me. I've learned a lot from you over the years, as I'm sure a lot of people have. So age ain't nothing but a number. Hell, I just watched earlier today, I was flipping through YouTube and I watched Vampiro versus Penta. And I mean, Vampiro's not a spring chicken either, but if you saw that match,
is that
that
from
was some pretty good stuff, man. From Lucha Underground, yeah. There was some blood and nastiness, and he still got it. So you still got it, Steve. In fact, you never lost it. And that's where we want to start, is with the time that you started getting it. We know you now as Kongo Kong, big guy. Let's talk about Little Kong. Where did Kong, where did Steve want to become a wrestler? Maybe you were watching wrestling one day for the first time, or maybe had been watching for a while. What was that moment that you said, I want to do this, and I know this is what I want to be?
Well, according to my dad, I was about 5 years old, and we were watching wrestling on a Saturday, and he said, Dad, I want to be Hulk Hogan. And I guess I can vouch for that, because the first real heavy memory I have is of Hogan slamming Andre, and it kind of took off from there. And over the years, my dad, as I was growing up, he'd be like, "Yeah, you're not doing that fake crap, blah blah blah." And now I get to rib him and be like, "Hey, Dad, guess what I'm doing? I'm doing that fake crap that you said I would never do."
That's the best, man. My dad was the same way. Not a big fan, but love the fact that I was a big fan. So, yeah.
Right.
So I gotta ask, what do your parents think of you? Now, what did they, when you finally started doing it? What was the opinion? Like, hey, he was serious. He's really gonna do this.
Yeah, my dad fought it a little bit in the beginning, and then once he saw that I was starting to make a name for myself, he became more supportive, and every now and again he'll show up to a show, come see me wrestle, and do the things that parents should do. My mom, to this day, she comes to a show, she's bound to come up to ringside and cuss out my opponent for hitting her face.
Great.
I was in Holland, Michigan last year, and I was wrestling a guy, and I think I'd taken a bump, and I look over, and my mom's standing right next to me. I go, "Mom, go sit down." And she looks at me. She goes, "What? You want me to sit down?" "Yeah, I want you to sit down. We're getting ready to come out there. Stop."
That's funny. Those are the moments that you always remember, though. I mean, obviously, you remember stuff like that.
So you were always a
family
WWF guy then?
Reaction from the fans.
Were you always a WWF guy then growing up, or?
I'm sorry, both of you talking.
Oh, sorry. Were you always a WWF fan growing up?
I watched it all. WWF was the main one, but I watched NWA/WCW, and then also ESPN would show World Class Wrestling and USWA and all the territories and the AWA, and I loved it all. And it was always a treat for me to watch how all those smaller feds that people would end up going to, they'd end up in the WWF, with a different gimmick. And I'm like, I know who they are.
Yeah.
I know that person. He used to be such and such,
Did that ever ruin the magic for you?
He's really
knowing?
No, not really. I mean, I just knew, that they went from what I knew, my favorite wrestler, well, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, The Undertaker. I knew he was me, Mark Callis, before, he had ever gotten WWE and became The Undertaker. But, still as a child, I was able to suspend that disbelief and, still have nightmares of The Undertaker chasing me through graveyards where I was running as fast as I can and he was doing a slow walk and would never be further than 10 feet behind me.
Like I had the same dream a couple of nights ago. So yeah, obviously, and that's a perfect segue into, you're a bigger guy, and you started out, you played football back in the day, if I'm not mistaken, up there in Michigan. You had in your mind, obviously, from a young age, and most likely going through high school, and that you wanted to be a professional wrestler. Where did you finally get that opportunity? Where did you become? Where did you transition? How did you say, "Hey, I know I want to do this. What's the next step for me?"
I actually was home from the first college that I went to. I got a scholarship to Saginaw Valley State University, which ironically, I was just telling some of the guys that I'd had the chance to play for Brian Kelly, but I didn't like him. He was a bit of a dick. And so I went to play for Coach Jerry Kill, who later on coached the Minnesota Gophers. And I was home for a summer, and I walked into a video game store, and there was a poster on the wall promoting the local show. And at the bottom, I had a number said, if you're interested in becoming a professional wrestler, call this number. And needless to say, I did not return to school that following year because I found my way into the business.
Speaking of wrestling school, obviously, were you? I mean, we're both kind of coming up in the '90s, and so you kind of already knew the gimmick, right? That it was scripted violence, right?
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, sort
Or
of.
did they have to open your eyes at school, like
Hey, wait a minute, wrestling is scripted?
They I guess they had to slow me down, you know what I'm saying? Because I knew, guys weren't actually out there like laying people out, with finishing quotes. Because I've been in fights before and I know what a punch feels like, and I know, guys not gonna get up and walk away from it, so easily. So just I guess it was a matter of showing me the technique to get it right so that I didn't kill people. But at the same time, I was also thrown into a match like a week into my training, and the guy I was wrestling called for a spear, and me being fresh out of collegiate football,
Oh, boy.
Looking up at the stars.
and he did not want to get up. I just remember him laying there and like me panicking, like, oh shit, what do I do?
Oh, whatever became of that guy, do you know?
He works at the airport in Grand Rapids now.
Oh, wow.
No,
I bet he never forgot that incident.
I managed to outlive wrestling wise, I guess. 95% of my training class, the only other person really still wrestling to this day is, or involved in the wrestling business, I should say, is Jimmy Jacobs.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I forgot you guys trained together.
Yeah, long time ago. He was a pipsqueak then, and he's a pipsqueak now.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Jimmy Jacobs is kind of attached to you like a tick, isn't he? Good dude, though.
Jumping forward a little bit, because one of my favorite memories of you was EWF. You were still Osiris, and the main event was you and Jimmy. And I was giving Jimmy Jacobs the what for, calling him a Alex Shelley ripoff is what I kept calling him. And all of a sudden, you tossed him. I'm in the front row. You toss him through the ropes. He lands in our laps. he looks at me and goes, "I made Jimmy Jacobs, or I made Alex Shelley," and then ran back in the ring. And like, it was just, I just remember your guys. It was just still my favorite memory. I just love that day because I was giving it to him, man, and he just gave it right back. So
I remember that match, and he wanted me to sell a spear for him, and I was like, okay, I guess I will.
Is that why we don't see too many spears on a
130-pound guy
Congo
wanting to
Kong
spear.
nowadays?
yeah.
We don't see very many. I don't think.
Now they bounce off.
That's awesome. Good memories, man. It's always the best part. So you got into wrestling school.
Right.
How long were you in that? How long were you in wrestling school before you finally had your first, what now looking back you would probably consider your first real match?
Okay, I'm gonna need you to repeat that one because you completely froze for a second.
No, you completely froze. No, what I was saying was, you got into wrestling school. You got far enough along to where you graduated. We'll say. What was the first match you had where I want to say you would look at it as your first real match because you were comfortable and you felt 100% ready to get in the ring and have a match? When was that first match, and do you remember who it was against?
Yeah, that was like after I spent like 2 or 3 years wrestling every weekend at EWF. By that time, I think I was like about 8 years into the business. So yeah, I hadn't got comfortable until I'd been in for a while, and I don't really remember. No, I take that back. I was wrestling in Ohio, and I wrestled this cat from Canada, and I don't know why I can't think of it. JT Player, that's who it is. Yeah, because I worked for him in Canada a couple times. And, that was just one of the situations where I felt like, all right, I'm finally getting this thing. I feel like, I could go out here and have a decent match with just about anybody.
Well, that kind of speaks to the mentality of a worker too, is being that far along in your career. And, because guys nowadays will say, oh, I went to wrestling school for 6 months and had my first match, and, I'm great now, I'm comfortable. I mean, that just doesn't happen. So it should be refreshing for anybody that's listening, that's in training or has been a wrestler for a number of years, that a guy like you who's got a laundry list of places you've been, opponents that you've been against, you've got a pedigree, to know that it took you that long to get to that stage. It doesn't have to be rushed, and I think that's important to know. So that's definitely kind of enlightening to me. I mean, I didn't know that either. I would have thought a guy like you would have been comfortable relatively right away. So interesting to know. See, that's how we learn awesome things about our guests. I'm sure we'll learn some other awesome things too.
So you wrestle for EWF.
I'm probably a lot of guys.
Go ahead, Steve.
I'm finding out a lot of guys these days, they think they're comfortable and they think they know things, and really they're just going out and they're throwing together a bunch of moves, and it just looks like a martial arts scene rather than what should be a knockdown, drag out fight that you're supposed to tell a story in. And I feel like a lot of guys need to spend a lot more time studying old school wrestling and knowing the reason why we do what we do, instead of just wanting to get in and do the latest coolest flip or super kick or no selling a Canadian pile driver or Canadian destroyer pile driver. Yeah.
Yeah, when did that become a setup move? That's what I always wanted to know. Like,
I can't for the life of me understand how a grown ass man can drop another grown ass man on his neck with a regular pile driver, and the guy that took it just gets up like nothing happened. I mean, let me drop you on your neck in real life. Let's see what happens. What exactly are we telling the fans about our sport when we do stuff like that? Basically we're saying, hey, we're trampoline wrestling, and I can point you to about 12 injuries on my body that say that neither ring that I've ever been in is a trampoline.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. And while you were saying that, in my head, thinking back to the Heroes and Legends where we had Terry Taylor, and he sat with me over where I sit for quite some time, and just listening to him critique a match, it was driving him absolutely bonkers. You know, they would do these moves and he'd be like, "Oh, now he's got to go for the pin," and then the guy would go up to the rope and he'd be like, "What?" I mean, he was going off, but I learned a lot in that time based on what you were just talking about, Steve, and that is that times have changed. It's all about the flippy do. You know, how many moves can I get in the time that I've got to do this match instead of telling a story. And
Steamboat said the same thing. You know, when we were sitting there with Ricky Steamboat, he said the same thing about the matches of just why does everything have to be so fast paced all the time? You know, they forgot the art of slowing down. You know.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Wrestling should look like a roller coaster. It should build up, then speed up, then slow down, and then build up again. You know, before you finish. And you know, everybody's in such a hurry to get nowhere, and it's crazy. I don't know.
And that's not just in the independents. I mean, that goes for these nationally televised shows too.
Yeah, and unfortunately, they're the ones leading the way. You know, and they want guys to go out there and kill it, as they say. Yeah, they're killing it. They're killing the business. That's for damn sure. It doesn't mean anything to just go out there and you know, go sell moves and here, let me get this spot in and let me run here and let me here, wink my eyes, shoot me to the ropes, and I'm magically gonna see where to turn. Guys, is it you? You there? Can you hear me?
Yep, we got
you. Yes, you know. Don't worry, Magic Mike will edit that part.
All right.
Yeah, that's me.
Good.
Yeah, definitely heard everything you said, and I think I'm going to say this with you know, complete honesty that you were considered a ring general pretty much everywhere that you go, especially on the independents. And the thing that you'll see in a match with you is exactly what you were just talking about. You don't got an opponent who's jumping all over, who's going too fast, because you're able to control that momentum. And, you know, there are some people out there that practice that same philosophy, that try and do the same thing. And you end up with a completely different match than you would if it was going the other direction. You know, for a perfect example, like we were just talking about a little bit ago, was Lucha Underground. Lucha Underground was nonstop, off the ropes, super kicks. I mean, just the craziest stuff.
Gas pedal broke off. Yeah,
and even big guys like Brian Cage were doing the same thing, and it was fun to watch. But you didn't even bother looking for a story because there was so much going on. You didn't look for a story. You had other guys that were not competitors that were telling the story. And so, you know, I think it's a very rare occasion where you see a wrestling match where you can watch it and see a story in front of your face. I don't think the audience now has gotten so comfortable with watching crazy wrestling matches that they don't really care about stories, and that's why the stories don't last so long if they start. So,
yeah.
Go ahead.
I think if you can go out there and after, you know, having a card full of matches like that, what do you call those? I call them cardio fest because that's all it is, you know, guys showing off their cardio and how well they do on the treadmill, you know, whatever, for 10, 15 minutes. And if you can go out there and still captivate the audience and, you know, get them to cheer, you know, for your match or respond to your match in such a way by the time it's over, then you're doing okay. And that means that the art of wrestling is still alive, you know, the storytelling and the magic. You know, you can make people forget. You can make people think that this guy's really a savage from the jungle. You know what I'm saying? And he's out here entertaining us, you know, and wrestling in front of us. And, you know, he's going to go back to the jungle after he leaves here or whatever. You know, you make him forget for those 15 minutes that, you know, the story that you tell them is not the truth. But if you present it as the truth, then they believe it.
I always loved watching you wrestle the smaller guys that would start to speed up, and you would just hit them with that massive clothesline and slow it on down. You know what I mean? Like it was like that. Those are some of the best. You know, I love that big man, small man. You know, match where the small man's trying to use his speed. He's trying, and that big man just slows it right down with just a major power move. You know. And you were great. You were great at that. I mean, speaking of the match with you and Jimmy Jacobs, right? I mean, obviously there's a size difference there, right? You know,
right.
Jimmy be hitting those suicide dives and stuff, and you just slow him right down. You know, like
yeah, you have to keep size psychology. Speaking of which, I've spent years yelling at Brutus Dillon because Brutus Dillon is bigger than me. Yeah. And he's actually sitting right here listening to me.
I was just going to say, we're calling him out.
It's bigger than me. And a lot of times he would do stuff that he shouldn't be doing, you know, with smaller guys. And now I feel like, you know, he's gotten it, you know, over the last couple of years that, you know, hey, I'm a big guy. And in order to save my body, in order to be doing it for a long period of time, you know, I have to figure out how to slow down and then just be menacing, you know, and you know, every once in a while pull out the cool stuff instead of doing it every show all the time.
Sure. You know, he's got that one big show where you can kind of, you know, do the Brock Lesnar super shooting star, you know. So
right.
I would pay good money to see Bruce Dillon do a shooting star. Seriously. In fact, you know, after watching him for a number of years now, he's changed quite a bit too. He's definitely gotten better, and you know, you live, you learn. Just like you know, the big guys are typically thrown into that David versus Goliath situation. You know, there's not a lot of big guys out there. You know, I mean, they're few and far between. There's not as many as you think, but you know, the David versus Goliath story is a story that needs to be told. So it doesn't matter what the content of the match is, there has to be that story, and you've got to get the crowd. You got to get the crowd with the little guy, and you managed to do that quite well in your matches. And you know, there's a lot of other people that do as well. So hopefully the trend continues with that. I'm not sure how long you plan on having left in your wrestling career, but hopefully we still get to see a lot more of you as the time goes by. So let's talk about the next big step for you in professional wrestling. And that was, I believe, the next big step would have been Global Force Wrestling. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, you can say that. Yeah, you can say that. It was, I'd say, between JCW and Global Force, yeah.
Okay. And you're pretty much
JCW is kind of where Kong started.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
JCW is where Kong started, and kind of the popularity spread from there. And then or Global Force came along, and for a couple of years, and you know, I had an awesome time there. You know, meeting guys and learning more about the business from, you know, guys like Jeff Jarrett and Scott Moore, and you know, continuing to make a name for myself, I guess.
So is JCW kind of the springboard to Global Force then?
I would say so. It was a springboard to a lot of things, really. JCW was responsible for my first ever flight for a pro wrestling show. Oh. So yeah, first time I'd ever been seen all over the world was on a JCW pay-per-view.
Yeah.
So yeah, they you know, I give them credit for the entire Kong idea, I guess, you know, because I would say character, but I brought Kong to life. they just kind of gave me the template that they wanted, and I just kind of took it from there.
Were they big Kamala fans, and just kind of wanted that kind of savage jungle, brutality? Is that what they wanted?
Yeah, they were big fans of weed. They're big fans of weed, is what it was, and they sat around, and they like their painted faces, and so they were watching a match of me as Osiris, and they saw my tattoo, and they were like, "Well, what if he paints his face like his tattoo?" And speaking of which, I was already, kind of, I guess, dabbing in the character, no pun intended.
Yeah,
that's not my first thought. Wait a minute. I thought it was dabbing before it was cool.
I was going to name Marty, and they were saying that the promoter that did it, and he wanted a cross between Umaga and Kamala, and so I did that character for him. And so then when JCW came along, I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll just bring that character and try to add to it, and be my own self, as much as I can or whatever.
Did you do many of the gatherings for them? I know that's their big show of the year.
I've done like the last 9 or 10 gatherings, yeah. So yeah.
How was that?
See some amazing stuff there.
Yeah.
It was an experience. I don't know if it's something that I need to recommend to people, but if you happen to be into that sort of thing, and want to check it out, you definitely should check it out. You'll see, lots of body parts on people that you probably should never ever see, and you experience a lot of people on stuff that you probably never thought you would be around. And they even had this thing called the drug bridge, where you can go and get your pick of poison. And I mean, for a couple of years it was lit there, and like I would go and I'd observe, and then like after a couple of years I was like, I'm just gonna stick to the wrestling part, and then go back to my hotel and
afterwards take a shower, man.
Yeah. Funny. So the path continued, JCW to Global Force, and then the biggest jump in your career so far, Impact Wrestling. I've been an Impact watcher for years. The first live event I ever attended was an Impact event. My 1-year anniversary was spent in Orlando, watching a TNA show, back when they had the 6-sided ring, and the crowd was literally, there was 2 feet between you and the ring. So I've always been a fan, still, and the product has gotten, it kind of went down for a while, but it's gotten better, and I think it's gotten a whole lot more interesting, a lot of great talent. And then you come along, obviously pretty cool, seeing you on my TV. How did that all come about? Well, we'll start with that. How did that opportunity come about for you?
Abyss. I had the opportunity to wrestle him and then tag with him, and by the end of that weekend, he said, "You deserve to be on television," and he says, "I'm gonna see what I can do about getting you at least a tryout match down at Impact." And at that point, I'd been in the business like 17 or 18 years, and one thing I learned is don't get too excited about, somebody making promises. You and I both know a guy who did a lot of promising and never came forth with any of it. And so, I just was like, okay, well, if it happens, cool. If not, then I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing. And so he happened to get a hold of me that like 2 months later, and he says, "Hey, I'm gonna need you to book a flight down to Orlando, and you'll have a trial match in front of just like the producers and the boys, and then like the next day we'll probably get you an explosion match." And so I got the flight booked, and they picked me up from the airport, and I got to go there, and I watched, and they were like, okay, well, you're doing Explosion tonight. We're not going to worry about the tryout match until tomorrow. And so I went, and I had an Explosion match with Caleb Conley, and Abyss was just like, listen, just throw all your stuff in there, everything that you do well. You know what I'm saying? All your cool stuff, put it in the match. And so I did. We had 8 minutes, and I went out there and did all my stuff. And the next day, I was thinking I was going to actually do the tryout match in front of the producers and stuff, but they were like, "No, we'll bring you back in March with a full story."
Seen enough. Did you end that tryout or that explosion match with the top rope slam?
No, I actually had to put the contracted talent over.
No.
How it goes.
How it goes. Yeah.
Had to make their guy. But I did miss a moonsault, so that was enough of a
wow,
positive impression.
Yeah. So when they brought you in, did they bring you in with Jimmy Jacobs as your manager right away, or was that something that they knew you guys had history, or?
No, Jimmy was still with ROH at the time, and so they brought me in. I was with KM, Kevin Matthews, and Chelsea Green. What did she go by? Laurel Van Ness at that point. And I had a little run with them, and then Jeff Jarrett ended up leaving, and I had a couple months off TV. And then when they brought me back with Jimmy Jacobs. And it just so happened that that was a story of wrestling coming full circle. You start off together, and then you end up on the main show together.
I that was some of my favorite moments of Impact, was watching first of all, knowing your history, but like just as a fan, it was just fun because Jimmy's that squirrely little, loudmouth heel, and you weren't saying shit. You know what I mean? So it was just, I loved it, man. I loved every second of it.
Yeah, I felt like we had some great content, and it sucks that it kind of just dissolved the way it did, but such is life, and you move on.
Yeah, speaking of that, were you kind of labeled as Jeff's boy, or was that maybe your downfall there, or just it was what it was?
No, I don't think it. I don't know that it was that. I have a couple conspiracy theories of people coming in after I did because it's happened at other places, and then all of a sudden I end up not being used. But politics is just it's something in wrestling that shouldn't be, but it is.
Not going anywhere.
And
politics aren't going anywhere anytime soon yet.
Right, exactly. So it is what it is.
And that's one thing you hear about all the time with the WWE is politics. Obviously, that company is built on that. Was it the same experience with Impact? What was that backstage situation like? What was the overall situation? Just in general.
I mean, for me, in the beginning, it wasn't the politics. It wasn't, I didn't have to worry about that. And then once I had that match with Abyss, it seemed like it was kind of a meh situation after that, and it shouldn't have been, I don't think, because if you look, I am a part of one of the most highest viewed matches in Impact history, with 40 million views or something like that, and they really didn't capitalize on it, and I don't know why or whatever. I don't really want to speculate, I guess. But hey, it is what it is.
Yeah, there's been a lot of guys that have come and gone that kind of say the same thing, where they kind of had something going there for. I mean, look at killing with Cross in NXT now. You know, they had an absolute killer. You know what I mean? Obviously, Killer Cross, right? An absolute killer. He chose to go elsewhere. You know what I mean? It kind of impacts sad history, right? They've had some of the biggest names you could ever think of.
Yeah.
And they're still technically number 3.
I think even, you know, with having the bigger names, to me, in that case, you should use the bigger names to build your talent, you know, people that you've originated with, as opposed to just every time there's a release from WWE, you bring them in, you put them on top. It just shouldn't work like that.
And while we're wrapping up the subject here of Impact Wrestling, in Impact, who was your biggest I don't want to say supporter, but let's say influence? Who was the guy that really helped you along in your career in Impact Wrestling?
That would be between Abyss and Hernandez, and then also Jimmy.
We just had Hernandez on the show a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, Abyss, Hernandez, all three amazing guys. I mean, you look at the 3 guys you just mentioned, and they kind of epitomize leadership, I think. So, yeah, definitely some great names to mention. Both or all 3 are amazing guys.
That's one of the traits that you have, Steve. Is you ooze leadership. I don't know if obviously it's from the time you've spent, but being in the back, you know, being in the locker room with you, and hearing some of the guys goof off, or you know, like Sean's maybe trying to say something, and you just raise up like, "Hey, you know, man's trying to speak," kind of thing. You know what I mean? And people shut up. It's just, you know.
Somebody's got to do it. You know, there should always be a locker room leader, or you know, a captain or somebody to kind of reel the guys in, you know, when it's necessary. Because sometimes, you know, you have a guy like Sean that you know, they don't know much about or whatever, don't really understand his role, and they might try to step all over him. And you just need to have somebody, you know, I guess, of status in the locker room to say, hey, you know, shut up. You need to be listening right now.
And I think out of all the Heroes and Legends shows we've had so far, you've always been that guy. Now, don't get me wrong. Steve has also been the guy who will lay into my ass if I'm doing something stupid. So, and I have no problem with that because it's coming from Steve. There's not very many people I would let talk to me like that. Really, aside from Steve, I can only name one other one, but that's what it takes to lead a locker room. You've got to have that. First of all, you got to have that level of respect, which you've definitely gotten over your career. People know that when you're in a locker room, you know what to do and that you're in charge. I think it's automatic, at least from what I've seen. In fact, here a few weeks ago, I was down in Warsaw to take in FWF event over there. And I walked into the locker room, and there you are, sitting in the chair, paperwork in hand. Every single mouth in there was quiet. And that says a lot for you and the leadership that you have. So what you're just talking about.
I hadn't been there in a year.
Yeah. There were no interruptions, no nothing. So even I didn't say anything until after he was done talking. So that wasn't even part of the show. So yeah.
Have you ever done any like dark stuff for WWE, or I mean televised things, or?
Actually, Jimmy had tried to give me some extra work, and I filled out the application many times over the years, and it just, for whatever reason, never worked out. I'm too big and too noticeable to be a security guard or a medic. They talked about possibly bringing me in for an in-person tryout in Florida that just never materialized. Then, you know, Impact happened, and then it was just, you know, whatever from there. By that time, I was already 40, so you know, I'm pretty sure WWE probably wouldn't have a whole lot of use for being at this age.
Now, is that something? Obviously, WWE is probably always a goal, right? But over the years, is that something you've kind of maybe changed your goal? Like you definitely know your spot. I mean, you've made some money, right? You've made a name. But is that still the ultimate goal? Is to be that TV star, or
I mean, it would be nice, but if it doesn't happen, I'd be okay with trying to help other guys come along and become that star. I would be okay with working behind the scenes and helping build a brand and build some stars in that brand.
sure?
I think that'd be a great position for you. I think you'd be a perfect fit for a role like that. So hopefully that happens. I know you've made enough friends in this business that know your level of knowledge. So I could definitely see you in a suit and tie doing that. I really could. I
I don't
think
know
that'd
about
be
super
great.
high, but whatever they.
Suit, tie,
Suit,
and
tie,
face
face
paint.
paint. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about kind of bringing things to a close here. Let's talk about you and what you have going on in your life now. What wrestling school is that still going on right now?
Yeah, that's still going on. It's
I know
Professor
I'm talking in the
Kong's.
world condition, the things that we're going through right now. I didn't know if that was still
Yeah,
active. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that.
yeah,
Where's
it's
it at?
Professor Kong's Wrestling Academy.
Yeah.
Professor Kong's Wrestling Academy, Bluffton, Indiana. Um, Still going on. Yeah, we took a break for a while, when things first started, and now we're kind of we're cautious, and the group that we have, we haven't let a whole lot of people back in, just because you can't really trust everybody. But the group we have, we trust to maintain, themselves, or at least be courteous that if you get exposed, or anything like that just to come to practice and or come and get everybody else sick or like that. It's wrestling's my brother anyway, so we have to have a level of trust that if we get ourselves in a situation where it could be harmful to each other, that we decide to pull ourselves from that situation so that we're not harming each other.
Yeah, definitely smart. Hopefully this virus situation is not around for a whole lot longer. I think all of us are looking back to a time when we can get back to some semblance of normalcy and
Sure.
get some big wrestling shows, get people back in wrestling school, get new people in wrestling school.
Get
So
crowds back in the building. It's this no crowd wrestling. I try to be that fan, right? I try to be that fan. It's not like shitting on the product just because I can't. I just can't do it. Wrestling's missing something when the crowd isn't there cheering.
Absolutely. Sets the atmosphere. I always tell people that without the fans, we're just a bunch of weirdos rolling around with each other in spandex.
Yep.
You need that audience there. It not only sets the tone for the wrestlers and the wrestling, but the audience at home watching can't really get into it unless they see other people getting into it.
Sure.
with or without crowds, we're all a bunch of weirdos anyway. So present company included. So Steve, let's let everybody know how they can follow you. Let's drop all that social media,
merch, whatever they
website info for the school, contact info for that. Let everybody know where they can follow you and find out more about you.
All right. Well, if you type in Congo Kong, you can find Steve Wilson, or you can find my actual Congo Kong page on Facebook. Also, the Professor Kong Wrestling Academy, that page is on there as well. I also make gear for professional wrestlers. And so if you are needing tights or trunks or kick pads or any of the like, everything except for boots, as a matter of fact, you can reach me on Juggernaut Gear by Osiris his page, or you can just message Steve Wilson. It doesn't matter. They all comes back to me. If you want to find me on Twitter, it's at Real Congo Kong. If you want to find me on Instagram, it's Congo Cyrus 78. Send me a message. Don't be weird. And yeah, like we can chat.
Totally sending a weird message when we get off this podcast.
I always want to be accessible, but sometimes you get people that are trying to access you too much, and so you have to put out those disclaimers.
And upcoming shows, what's on your list here for the near future? In fact, you got a show today, if I'm not mistaken.
Nope, that was last night.
Last night? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's Saturday or Sunday, not Saturday.
Yeah, Sunday. I am off until November 28th. Jeez. And that's in Wisconsin, and you can ask me the name of the Fed, but I couldn't tell you. But what's your next date? The 21st?
The 20th.
20th? November 20th, you guys can come and catch a hell of a show here in South Bend for Revolution Championship Wrestling. And I who knows, sometimes I pop my face up there. Sometimes they like me, sometimes they don't.
Is that the Enzo?
Who doesn't like you?
Yeah, Enzo is gonna be here. Yeah, because he's here, I can't be here.
I was gonna say some of the other nerds in the room with you right now.
We definitely thank you for being on the show.
Yeah,
we definitely, we love you. We respect you. Nothing but love on our end for you. You're one of the best guys we've ever known. Just watching you with my kids and how, you put that paint on and you become this larger than life character. And these kids are either afraid of you or like my kid, he just fell in love with you. So, thank you, obviously.
I absolutely appreciate you guys for wanting to hear from me and kind of giving Steve Wilson, the man behind the character, a voice. And so having podcasts and people like you guys helps us. I go further story and hopefully make people a little more interested in what we got going on.
Definitely. Sometimes people forget that there's a real human being behind that character that you play. So it's always nice to talk to that person. And we definitely appreciate you having been on the show. And I'm sure it won't be the last time. We know you've got a big future ahead of you, no matter what that is, whether it's behind the scenes or still in between the ropes. We look forward to seeing you every time. So thank you very much for being on the show. We appreciate it. And until